He humiliated his wife in front of his friends. Hours later, his plan went down the drain with her revelation. I doubt this sham marriage lasts another year. She's not even close to my level. Victor's voice rang clear and cutting, coming from the living room, slicing through the hallway and hitting her square in the kitchen. Rebecca froze, the knife hovering over the bunch of fresh basil, the aroma of Italy she loved so much suddenly turning nauseating. Through the cracked door, she could see James, Kyle and Nathan, her husband's childhood buddies, raising their whiskey glasses in a silent but complicit toast. Their laughter, low and smug, was like shattered glass in her ears. They were lounging on her white linen sofa, sipping the single malt from her collection, in the apartment she decorated with such care, toasting her husband's declaration that she was beneath him. Kyle, the biggest brown-noser, even stood up to pat Victor on the shoulder, muttering something about how he deserved the world. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me go back to the morning when it all started. The pesto she was making for their special Thursday night dinner sat forgotten on the quartz countertop. Rebecca stayed still, hidden by the corner of the wall. Through the slit, she watched James refill the glasses with the Macallan 18-year she'd been saving for their anniversary next month. Nathan, in his designer shoes, propped his feet on the reclaimed wood coffee table she'd scavenged from an antique shop in the Hudson Valley. They looked so at ease in the sanctuary she'd built, so at home in the success she'd orchestrated, while celebrating her husband's decision to discard her. "Since when have you felt this way?" asked James, leaning in with that predatory interest of someone sniffing out a juicy story to retell later. "Since she got promoted to director," Victor replied, the ice clinking in his glass. The sound seemed to echo the chill settling in Rebecca's chest. "Ever since Rachel became the powerhouse boss at the publishing house, she's acting like the reincarnation of Virginia Woolf. The pedestal she's put herself on is unbearable." The promotion. The one she'd worked nights and weekends for, sacrificing dinners and vacations. The promotion that made her one of the youngest editorial directors in the country, a position she'd earned after discovering a best-selling author who single-handedly saved the publishing house from bankruptcy the year before. The promotion that allowed Victor to quit his mediocre job at an ad agency to pursue his dream of being a painter, a dream that so far had only produced dusty canvases and a mountain of debt on her credit card. "You gave her the space to grow," said Nathan, with the conviction of someone who'd never paid a bill in his life. "She just got lucky with that author. Lightning doesn't strike twice in the same place." Rebecca watched Victor nod, absorbing that lie like it was deserved praise. As if he hadn't been on the brink of financial collapse when they married, as if she hadn't paid off his debts and encouraged him to follow a passion that, in practice, became an expensive hobby funded by her. The ceramics course he dropped, the photography workshop in Patagonia that cost a fortune and yielded not one sellable photo, the studio he set up in the guest room whose art supplies were pricier than actual rent. Each investment in his career was a drain on her savings, while he promised his big breakthrough was just around the corner. Kyle stood to grab a cigar from the cedar box she'd given Victor as a gift. "You need a woman who admires you, man. Someone who gets that an artist's soul isn't measured in book sales spreadsheets. An artist's soul." That was the excuse Victor used at Friends Gallery openings, while she spent all-nighters reading manuscripts, negotiating with agents, and editing texts that became critical and commercial hits. He theorized about the crisis of modern art, while she, in practice, fostered culture, publishing new voices and keeping literature alive. He talked about legacy while she built one. "Becca's changed," Victor continued, his voice laced with rehearsed self-pity. "She used to be enchanted by my ideas. Now she just asks if I've sold any paintings this month. She doesn't get that art transcends commerce." James laughed, a muffled sound that seemed to mock the entire apartment she paid for. "Sounds like she's turned into one of those cold executives, all about numbers, forgot how to dream." Forgot how to dream. The dream that paid for the luxury condo in Manhattan's Upper West Side. The dream that funded his trips to find inspiration in Europe. The dream that let him live a bohemian leisure life, while she shouldered the weight of the real world. Her phone buzzed silently on the counter, a text from her assistant, Tyler. "Rachel, the author of Shadows in the Everglades, just won the National Book Award." He's thanking you in every interview. Said you were the only one who believed in him. Congrats, boss. The National Book Award, the biggest literary prize in the country. The ultimate recognition for the work she'd done, for the bet she'd made. And there was her husband, the man she supported, the man whose creative block she consoled, telling his friends their marriage was a joke. The point is, said Victor, pouring himself another generous dose of whiskey, his third by her count. I've been documenting everything. Every time she comes home late and accuses me of doing nothing all day. Every credit card statement showing her expensive clothes buys. My lawyer says I've got a solid case for alimony and a good chunk of the assets for emotional and psychological distress. His lawyer, Ms. Laura, the gym buddy, the one he said was just his workout partner. They'd been meeting to plot how to extract the money she earned while she was busy earning it. Genius, said Kyle, raising his glass. Set up your pieces before checkmate. She won't have time to react, Victor assured, his voice inflated by the alcohol and his friend's approval. Becca thinks she's so intellectual with her books and awards, but she doesn't understand the real-life game, the one played off the pages. The real-life game. The game where he planned to destroy her while sleeping in her bed, eating her food, living off her success. The game where he'd convinced himself and his friends he was the victim, the misunderstood artist, married to a materialistic shrew. Rebecca looked at the unfinished pesto, the knife still in her hand. She set it down on the counter, the metallic clink a small snap in the silence of her desolation. She watched the four men, friends she'd hosted in her home for dinners and parties, men whose problems she'd listened to, whose successes she'd celebrated. The guys' nights made sense now. They weren't about football or politics. They were war councils for her annihilation. She walked slowly out of the kitchen, her bare feet barely making a sound on the hardwood floor. She stopped in the living room entryway, arms crossed. Four pairs of eyes widened in unison, conversations dying instantly. Victor's glass froze mid-air, the lamplight reflecting off the golden liquid. The silence that settled was so thick she could hear her own breathing shallow and quick. Victor! Her voice came out as a hiss, her name shifting from an object of contempt to an accusation in a second. We were just... Why wait a year? She interrupted. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried the weight of a final decision, the tone she used to reject an unsalvageable manuscript. Let's end this farce today. I don't want you suffering another 12 months married to someone so inferior. James's face drained of color. Kyle suddenly became fascinated with a loose thread on the sofa cushion. Nathan stepped back, as if her calm was scarier than a scream. But Victor, her husband of 8 years, the man she'd vowed to love and support, just stared, mouth agape, the artist suddenly wordless, his face a blank canvas. Rebecca turned and walked down the hallway toward the bedroom, leaving them behind, frozen in their collective guilt. Each step was a hammer blow nailing the coffin of their marriage. The sound of the bedroom door closing behind her was a soft click, but it seemed to echo through the entire apartment, a final and definitive punctuation. The voices in the living room turned into a frantic, muffled buzz, the confusion of men caught in their own trap. Rebecca ignored it. In the closet, a space she'd designed as her refuge, with soft lighting and organized rows of books and clothes, she pulled out the leather suitcase she used for business trips. She placed it on the canopy bed, the same bed where so many nights she'd consoled him for his lack of inspiration, where she'd listened to his laments about an art world that didn't understand him, never realizing his contempt was actually aimed at her. Her hands moved with emotionless efficiency, a defense mechanism against the chaos settling in her soul. She folded the silk dresses she'd worn to book launches, the tailored pants she'd donned for closing million-dollar deals, the jewelry she'd bought for herself to celebrate each award her authors won. Each item was a reminder of a life she'd built, a life he'd benefited from while secretly resenting her. From the bathroom, she grabbed her skincare products, the imported creams Victor called bourgeois frivolities, but which for her were small rituals of self-preservation amid an exhausting routine. The bottle of her favorite perfume, the one he used to say smelled like success, now seemed a cruel irony. Hesitant footsteps climbed the short flight of stairs leading to the master bedroom. They weren't Victor's heavy, confident strides, but an uncertain shuffle, the sound of men approaching an explosion they detonated themselves. "Becca, please, let's talk." Victor appeared in the doorway, his perfectly tousled hair now truly disheveled, his hands wringing in an anxiety she'd never seen before. Behind him in the dimly lit hallway, the silhouettes of Kyle and James hovered like guilty vultures. "Talk about what, Victor?" she asked, zipping her toiletry bag with a sharp sound. "That I'm not on your level, that our marriage is a sham, that you've been meeting with Laura to plan how to extort me. Which part of your betrayal would you like to elaborate on?" Laura's name made the blood drain from his face. Mentioning the lawyer was proof she'd not just heard but understood the depth of the conspiracy. How do you know about her?" Rebecca grabbed her work bag, where her laptop held the universe she ruled. Manuscripts, contracts, agent contacts, the intellectual property of dozens of authors. "The same way I know about the account you opened without telling me in March. The same way I know you told your gallerist I'm too commercial and stifling your art. The same way I know it was you, Kyle," she said, her gaze shifting and pinning the friend cowering behind Victor, "who sent me that anonymous text an hour ago." Kyle's face became a mask of panic. "I didn't—" "Don't lie." Rebecca's voice was icy. "The message said, 'Ask your husband what he really thinks of your promotion. Thursday nights aren't what you imagine.' You thought you were doing me a favor, right? Clearing your conscience after months of participating in this farce." Victor turned to his friend, incredulity turning to fury. "You betrayed me, you told her." Kyle stepped forward, finally finding a scrap of courage. "I didn't tell her everything, Victor. I should have. I've been hearing you talk for months about the Project Icarus, about how you were going to clip her wings before she flew too high and left you behind. I saw you photographing her receipts, recording arguments to use out of context. This isn't a hurt husband, man. This is a predator." "Project Icarus." Rebecca let out a dry, humorless laugh. The name was so pretentious, so dramatically self-centered, just like Victor. He saw himself as the sun and her as Icarus, flying too close, destined to fall. The arrogance was breathtaking. "We thought it was just bar talk," stammered Nathan, who'd come up to join the scene, drawn by the confrontation. "Bar talk?" Rebecca turned to face them one by one. "You thought plotting the financial and emotional ruin of your friend's wife was bar talk? You who ate my food, drank my wine, whose girlfriends and wives I advised on their own lives? You thought I deserved this for succeeding? For having the audacity to be good at what I do while he paints?" The last word came out with unhidden contempt. The silence that followed was a confession. Victor's hands clenched into fists, his jaw tight as he searched for a defense, a justification that didn't exist. You can't justify the unjustifiable. You can't erase months of conspiracy with one excuse. Rebecca snapped her suitcase shut with a definitive click. She brushed past them in the hallway, the smell of whiskey and fear hanging in the air. The living room wall was covered in a gallery of photos from their trips together: Machu Picchu, the Atacama Desert, the streets of Rome. Each photo, a moment she'd thought was shared happiness, now seemed just a record of her naivety. The service elevator, with its brass mirror and red carpet, felt like a confessional as it descended the 20 floors. She was leaving behind not just an apartment or a marriage, but the version of herself that believed love meant diminishing herself so the other could shine. The woman who accepted the sensitive artist excuse to justify laziness and resentment. The Plaza Hotel on Fifth Avenue welcomed her with its discreet and impersonal elegance. The valet didn't blink when she handed over the keys to her Tesla, nor did the front desk clerk when she requested the best suite available for an indefinite stay, paying with her personal card the Amex Centurion Victor didn't even know she had. It was her freedom fund, built from performance bonuses she never declared at home, because she'd long learned that in a marriage with an insecure man, financial autonomy wasn't a luxury, it was survival. The suite was an oasis of calm and neutral tones, no half-finished canvases leaning against the wall, no smell of turpentine mixed with expensive cologne. From the window, the lights of the country's most vibrant city twinkled, a reminder of the world she'd conquered with her own intellect and hard work. The phone, which she'd left in her bag, started vibrating incessantly. Victor. The messages were a case study in desperate manipulation. The anger, "You can't just walk out like this is childish." The emotional blackmail, "You're destroying everything we built together." The fake contrition, "I didn't mean it. I was drunk, the guys egged me on." And finally the veiled threat, "You'll regret humiliating me in front of my friends." Rebecca took the phone to the lavish bathroom with its soaking tub and Carrara marble. She set it on the counter and turned on the faucets, the sound of the tub filling drowning out the insistent buzz of the device. As she undressed, she looked at herself in the mirror. She saw the exhaustion in her eyes, but also a spark of something new, something hard and bright that hadn't been there before. It was the ember of fury, the cold flame of resolve. She'd spent years editing other people's stories. Now it was time to start editing her own. The hot water in the tub was an embrace, a stark contrast to the ice that had formed in her veins. Rebecca submerged up to her neck, the steam rising and fogging the mirrors, creating a protective cocoon against the outside world. There, in the watery silence, she finally allowed herself to crumble. The tears weren't from sadness over losing the husband she loved, but from mourning the woman she'd been, the woman who'd refused to see the signs, who'd accepted crumbs of affection in exchange for her unconditional sacrifice. She cried for the humiliation of being the butt of jokes, the unwitting sponsor of her own destruction. She cried for the anger of having been so blind, so busy building an empire for both of them, that she didn't notice he was undermining the foundations to demolish her. Every trip she paid for, every fancy dinner, every tube of imported oil paint, all had been twisted by him into a weapon, into proof of her shallowness, while he enjoyed every penny. She stayed in the tub until the water cooled, until her fingers pruned and her eyes burned, until there were no more tears, just a cold, cutting clarity. Getting out, wrapped in the softest robe she'd ever felt, she picked up the phone. Dozens of missed calls from Victor and his friends. She ignored them and dialed a number she knew by heart, the one person who would understand the intersection of law and human cruelty. Ms. Sarah Thompson, the best family law attorney in New York, a woman whose reputation was as sharp as her tailored suits. "Rebecca, is everything okay? It's almost 10 at night." Sarah's voice was concerned but professional. They were more than client and lawyer. They were friends bonded over occasional dinners, where they lamented the complexities of being powerful women in a world still uncomfortable with it. "It happened, Sarah. It all happened," Rebecca said, her voice surprisingly steady. She recounted the evening's events, from the phrase she'd overheard in the kitchen to the Project Icarus and Kyle's unwitting confession. She omitted no details, her editorial mind organizing the facts into a cohesive, devastating narrative. On the other end, Sarah's silence was heavy, loaded with contained fury. "That pretentious bastard," she said finally, formality forgotten. "Rebecca, listen carefully. You did the right thing by leaving. Don't talk to him. Don't respond to any messages. He'll try to manipulate you, blame you, make you feel sorry for him. Don't fall for it. Tomorrow 7 a.m., my office. Bring everything. Bank statements, tax returns, anything documenting your earnings and the investments you made in his career. And Rebecca, brace yourself. This is going to be ugly. He won't give up the lifestyle you provide easily." After hanging up, Rebecca felt a wave of purpose replace the emptiness. She opened her laptop and got to work. For hours she scoured her digital files, her mind moving with a surgeon's precision. She created folders, studio expenses, detailing every cent spent on canvases, paints and brushes, inspiration trips, with costs for airline tickets and luxury hotels, debts paid, a painful record of his loans and credit card bills she'd cleared before and during the marriage. She compiled emails where he praised her financial success, juxtaposing them with recent ones full of contempt. She was building a case not for a court, but for herself, a dossier of truth that would nullify any lie he tried to tell. Around 1 in the morning, an email notification caught her eye. It was from an anonymous address with the subject, "One more puzzle piece." The body contained only a Dropbox link. Heart pounding, she clicked. The folder held dozens of audio files. She opened the first. Victor's voice, distorted by poor recording quality, but unmistakable, bragging to his friends. "The beauty of the plan is she'll fund the divorce herself," he said, followed by laughter. "While she's out there killing herself to publish another self-help book, I'm here building my case." Ms. Laura says the psychological distress concept is flexible. A sensitive artist whose creativity was crushed by a wife's materialistic pressure. Judges love that narrative. It's almost poetic. Rebecca felt the air leave her. It was a recording from one of the guys' nights. She clicked another file. "The key is documenting everything," Victor explained like a twisted professor. "She comes home stressed from work? Note it. Signs of emotional imbalance. She buys a new handbag? Save the receipt. Pattern of compulsive spending and financial irresponsibility. You guys should try this with yours too. It's called narrative control. If you control the story, you control reality." The anonymous email could only be from one person, Kyle. The betraying friend, now attempting a fragmented redemption, sending evidence that could destroy Victor but also himself. He'd not just participated, he'd recorded. Rebecca forwarded the Dropbox link to Sarah immediately, with one line. "I think we have Project Icarus on audio." Sarah's reply was almost instant, even in the middle of the night. "My God. Rebecca, this is gold. This isn't just a divorce, it's an execution. He's done." The next day, Sarah Thompson's office in the heart of Midtown Manhattan felt like a fortress. The glass walls offered a panoramic view of New York, a reminder of the power and ambition driving the city. Sarah, impeccable in a charcoal gray suit, wore an expression blending indignation and predatory focus. "I listened to the audios," she said, her voice low and dangerous. "What he did isn't just morally repugnant, it's legally actionable. The attempt to fabricate evidence, the conspiracy to commit fraud, we can end him." As they mapped out the strategy, Rebecca's phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. She answered, putting it on speaker. "Hello? Rebecca, it's Megan, James's wife." Her voice was a tremulous whisper. "I need to talk to you. James came home last night, drunk and unhinged. He told me everything. About the meetings, about Victor's plan. Becca, I'm so disgusted. I found his notebook. Victor gave them all a manual, a step-by-step guide on how to manipulate a woman, how to make her doubt herself." Sarah and Rebecca exchanged glances. The rot was deeper than they'd imagined. "He was teaching the others?" Rebecca asked, incredulous. "Yes." Megan's voice broke into a sob. "Tactics for starting a fight and then filming just your reaction so you look crazy. Advice on controlling money access, isolating her from friends. James has been doing this to me for months, and I thought the problem was me, that I was depressed or paranoid. That monster wasn't just destroying your marriage, he was exporting his poison to our homes." Another unexpected ally, another life touched by Victor's toxicity. "Megan, can you send me photos of that notebook?" Sarah asked, taking control. "This is crucial." "I already emailed them to you," Megan replied. "And Becca, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry we didn't see, that we participated in the dinners and laughed at his jokes without knowing he was destroying you from the inside. I'm leaving too. I filed for divorce this morning." When the call ended, the room was silent, except for the distant traffic hum. Rebecca looked out the window at the skyscrapers piercing the sky. She felt like one of them, tall, exposed, but with a steel core that refused to buckle. Their strategy was assembled with military precision. Sarah prepared an extrajudicial notice that was a masterpiece of legal intimidation. It detailed every piece of evidence they had: the Project Icarus audios, the manipulation manual photos, the bank statements proving Victor's total financial dependence, the conspiracy with Ms. Laura. The notice offered Victor a simple choice: accept a divorce settlement where he'd leave with only his personal belongings and dusty canvases, signing a perpetual non-disclosure agreement, or face a public lawsuit including charges of fraud, emotional harassment and conspiracy, with testimonies from Kyle, Megan and potentially the other wives. "We'll deliver this in person," Sarah said, a dangerous gleam in her eyes. In front of his lawyer. "I want to see their faces when they realize the game is over." The meeting was set for 2 days later, in Ms. Laura's opulent but tacky office in a commercial building in the Upper East Side, Rebecca entered beside Sarah, feeling strangely calm. Victor was already there, looking pale and haggard, but still trying to project an air of wronged artist. Ms. Laura, a woman with too much jewelry and a condescending smile, started talking about the need for a fair settlement that recognizes the emotional sacrifice of her client. Sarah let her speak for exactly 2 minutes. Then, she placed a small speaker on the polished mahogany table. "Before we proceed," she said, "I'd like to play something to contextualize our discussion." She hit play. Victor's voice filled the room, clear and arrogant, from one of Kyle's recordings. "The beauty of the plan is she'll fund the divorce herself. Judges love that narrative. It's almost poetic." Laura's smile froze and then crumbled. Victor's face went from white to green. He looked at Rebecca, his eyes wide with panic and plea. But her face was a mask of indifference. Sarah stopped the recording. "This," she said, her voice smooth as silk, "is audio of your client conspiring to commit fraud. We have over 3 hours of it. We also have the notebook, the manual he distributed to his friends teaching them psychological abuse, and we have testimonies from 2 of their wives who've already filed for divorce because of it." She pushed a single sheet of paper across the table. It was the agreement. "Victor leaves this marriage with the clothes on his back, his art supplies and nothing else. He'll sign an NDA preventing him from even mentioning Rebecca's name in public for the rest of his life. If he hesitates, the full contents of those recordings will be attached to a criminal and civil lawsuit that will make his name synonymous with con artist in this city forever. You have 5 minutes to decide." Ms. Laura looked at the papers, then at her client, who was now visibly shaking. She grabbed the pen and shoved it toward him. "Sign, Victor," she hissed, contempt evident in her voice. "Sign now." He signed. The handwriting, once flourished and artistic, was now the shaky scrawl of a defeated man. As he left the room, he didn't dare look at Rebecca. He was a ghost, a mirage of a man dissipating before her eyes. That night, back in her suite, Rebecca didn't order room service. She went down to the hotel restaurant herself, sat alone at a table and ordered the most expensive meal on the menu and a glass of the finest champagne. She ate slowly, savoring each bite, not as a celebration but as an act of reclamation. She was reclaiming her palate, her time, her life. The phone buzzed. It was a text from a number she didn't recognize. "Congrats. Heard you clipped the sun's wings. K. Kyle." His redemption, incomplete as it was, had been the key. She didn't reply. Some debts could never be fully repaid. She finished her champagne, gazing at the city lights she didn't just inhabit, but owned. The war was over. Peace, she knew, would take longer to build, but for the first time in years, she felt she had all the time in the world. The months that followed were an exercise in slow, deliberate reconstruction. Rebecca didn't return to the Upper West Side apartment. The idea of sleeping in that bed, walking those hallways now haunted by memories of betrayal, was unbearable. Sarah handled the logistics, sending a team to pack her belongings under remote supervision, while Victor was instructed to remove his canvases and personal items at a strictly scheduled time, like any delivery guy. The apartment, the sanctuary she'd built, went on the market and sold in under a month. New York's real estate market uncaring about broken hearts. Rebecca bought a new place, a sleeker, more modern condo in Brooklyn Heights, with an unobstructed view of the East River. A place without history, a blank canvas where only she would paint the future. At work, she dove in with renewed ferocity. The National Book Award win propelled the publishing house to a new level of prestige. Authors once out of reach now sought her imprint. Literary agents from London and Paris scheduled meetings. Rebecca became a force of nature in the publishing world, her reputation for having an infallible nose for success solidifying with each new bestseller she launched. Her colleagues noticed a change in her. The kindness was still there, but now coated in steel. Her patience for mediocrity and pretension had evaporated. She became more direct, more incisive, her decisions quicker and her vision clearer. Some called her intimidating, others brilliant. She didn't care about the labels. She was too busy building her legacy. Social life, however, was a minefield. The circle of friends she'd shared with Victor disintegrated. James and Megan, like Nathan and his wife, were in the midst of contentious divorces, Victor's manual becoming the centerpiece of their legal battles. Kyle, the catalyst of it all, vanished. Rumors said he'd moved out west, unable to face the consequences of his complicity and his final betrayal of Victor. Rebecca got invitations to dinners and events, but often declined. Small talk seemed trivial, forced socializing a drain on energy. She met with Sarah and occasionally Megan, the two women with whom she now shared a bond forged in the fire of the same betrayal. They gathered for quiet dinners, where the wine was good and the words few. There was a tacit understanding among them, a sisterhood of survivors that didn't need long discussions about the pain. They just knew. One evening, 6 months after the divorce, Rebecca was at a reception for the American Academy of Arts and Letters, a stuffy and formal event she attended only for professional obligation. While chatting with an elderly literary critic, she felt eyes on her. Across the room near a statue of Mark Twain stood Victor. The transformation was shocking. The bohemian artist air had been replaced by poorly disguised desperation. He was thinner, unshaven. The suit he wore, an old, ill-fitting model, seemed to swallow him. He wasn't there as a guest, but as part of the catering staff, holding a tray of hors d'oeuvres. His eyes met hers, and for a moment, the world seemed to stop. There was panic in his gaze, humiliation and a spark of his old arrogance, as if daring her to acknowledge him. Rebecca didn't give him that satisfaction. Her face remained a mask of neutral politeness. She looked away slowly, as if he were just another piece of furniture in the room, and turned her full attention back to the literary critic, laughing at one of his jokes with a warmth she didn't feel. She sensed him watching her the rest of the night, a ghostly presence in her peripheral vision. Seeing him there, serving appetizers at an event where she was one of the honored guests, should have brought a sense of triumph, of poetic justice. But all she felt was deep weariness and a pang of pity, not for him, but for the time she'd wasted. The story, of course, spread like wildfire in New York's tight-knit social circle. Victor's fall was as spectacular as Rebecca's rise. Without her financial support, he was forced to abandon the makeshift studio and leisure life. His friends, now dealing with their own divorces and guilt, abandoned him. He tried selling his paintings, but the art market he claimed to understand rejected him. His canvases, which he believed were masterpieces of existential angst, were seen as derivative and amateurish. He moved to a small apartment in a distant borough, and catering gigs were apparently what paid his bills. A year after the divorce, a hardcover book arrived at Rebecca's office by mail. No sender, but she recognized the handwriting on the small note accompanying it. It was from Kyle. The book was a rare first edition of To Kill a Mockingbird, something she'd casually mentioned wanting years ago at a dinner. The note said only, "I know it doesn't fix anything, but I had to try." She placed the book on her shelf, not as a symbol of forgiveness, but as a reminder of the complexity of human actions, how guilt and redemption could coexist in the same gesture. The real turning point, however, came from an unexpected source. Tyler, her young and ambitious assistant, had been working on his own manuscript in his spare time. He handed it to her with trembling hands, saying she was the only person whose opinion mattered. The novel, titled The Geometry of Silence, was a brilliant and painful exploration of power dynamics in a relationship, about the small erosions of the soul that happen when one person shrinks to accommodate the other. The writing was sublime, the psychological insight terrifying. It was, without doubt, the best piece of fiction she'd read in years, and it echoed her own story in a way that left her breathless. She didn't just publish the book, she made it her personal mission. She launched the biggest marketing campaign the house had ever seen. The book exploded. It won the National Book Award the following year, as well as the PEN Faulkner. Tyler became the new literary sensation in America, and Rebecca, the editor with the Midas touch, cemented her place as the most powerful figure in national literature. During the award ceremony, in his acceptance speech, Tyler looked directly at her in the front row. "I dedicate this award to Rebecca Lynn, who taught me that the most important stories aren't the ones we edit, but the ones we have the courage to rewrite for ourselves." At the after-party, surrounded by authors, agents, and journalists all vying for a piece of her time, she felt, for the first time, truly at peace. The validation didn't come from the awards or sales figures, but from the sense of having turned pain into purpose, of using her experience not for revenge but to create, to elevate another voice. It was that same night she got a call from her mother. "Honey, you won't believe who I saw today," she said, her voice tense. "I was at the grocery store in the checkout line and he was there. Victor, he was working as a bagger." The silence on the line was heavy. He looked small and old. When he saw me, he dropped the bags and just ran to the back of the store. "Rebecca, I know I shouldn't, but I felt sorry." Rebecca closed her eyes for a moment, the party noise around her fading. "Don't, Mom," she said, her voice calm and firm. "Pity is a feeling we give to those who had no choice. He had all the choices in the world, and he made his, I made mine." She hung up and returned to the party. A young author approached her, manuscript in hand, eyes shining with hope. She smiled, a genuine and effortless smile. She took the manuscript. Life went on. Stories needed telling, and she was the gatekeeper. 2 years later, Rebecca was in Miami during the Miami Book Fair, the international literary festival. She was one of the main speakers, her panel on the future of the publishing market the most sought-after event. After her talk, while signing books, a tired-looking woman approached the table. Rebecca recognized her vaguely. It was Laura, Victor's ex-lawyer. The flashy jewelry was gone, replaced by simple clothes and a look of defeat. "Ms. Rebecca," she began, her voice low, "I just wanted to apologize. What we tried to do was wrong. After that day, my reputation went down the drain. No one wanted to hire a lawyer caught conspiring with a client. I lost my practice. Now I work as a legal assistant at a small firm." She paused, swallowing hard. "He ruined me too. He used me, promised me a big cut, made me believe his story. I was a fool." Rebecca looked at the woman before her. There was no satisfaction in her fall, just a melancholic emptiness. Victor was like a black hole, sucking the light from everyone around him. "I hope you find your way, Ms. Laura," Rebecca said, and it was sincere. She had no more room in her life for resentment. Later that night, walking the cobblestone streets of Miami under a starry sky, she thought of Victor for the last time. Not with anger, not with pity, but with the distance of a historian examining an artifact from a past era. He wasn't a monster, she realized. He was just a weak man, terrified by his wife's shine, who chose the darkness of betrayal instead of learning to stand beside her and enjoy the sun. His tragedy wasn't getting caught. It was never understanding that true love doesn't compete. It applauds. She arrived at the inn, sat on the balcony facing the ocean, and opened a new manuscript. The first lines were promising. She picked up her red pen, not to cut or diminish, but to polish, to elevate, to help another story find its voice. And in the silence of the night, with the soft sound of waves as soundtrack, Rebecca Lynn, the woman who rewrote her own ending, began to work. What did you think of this story? On a scale of 0 to 10, what score would you give it? Subscribe to the channel and click the bell to get all our stories. And click here to watch another surprising story. Thanks, and see you next time.